Hi, all. I hope you're well. We are doing the Scale Your Business Remotely webinar. Thank you guys for joining. So good to have you guys here. Let's dive into it. I want to kick off by quickly asking you guys, first off, what is it that you truly want more of? Is it A, getting paid more money? Is it B, getting more aligned clients? Is it C, finding more time to have fun? Or is it D, finding a bit more balance in between play and purpose? Who's down for all of that? More money, more time, more freedom, more fun. We can have all that. So, quick introduction, and this is what I'm going to get into today. I'm June. I am the owner of a business management agency called Qudoze, and we basically help a lot of creative CEOs with their online business so that they can really focus on creating more of what they love. I do a bit of a bridge between marketing, business, and systems. And we are really blessed. My team are able to work with amazing creative clients like Kauai and Sorelle Amore. And I'm very blessed. My clients have been working with me for sometimes over 2 years now. And I just get to work with the best people. And I love it. And the reason why I think this really works and it's been absolutely key in being able to scale my business is because as long as we have aligned values and we have the shared values, core values, we're always going to feel like we're helping each other in our businesses. For example, my clients and me share a very shared and aligned vision in how we feel about freedom, how we feel about managing our time. And it's really been able to allow for longer term relationships that have been absolutely key in me being able to scale my business to where it is today. I know some of you are joining from all over the world. And last year I was able to travel or be in 8 different cities. And the reason why I've been able to scale my business to the point where I've been able to balance that piece of freedom and also have that growth in my business is through these 4 key principles that I really think are going to be absolute key in helping you scale your business too. Now, you'll see and you'll hear a lot about these 4 pieces throughout all of the topics today. But what I really want you to remember is making sure that you're working with aligned clients. That is absolutely key. I'm going to talk about how to go in and define that in a sec. We're going to talk about how to refine and optimize your existing service and always try and become better in what you do for who you work with currently. I want you to also always try to think ahead, manage your expectations with clear communications. It is so key. And the 4th thing is to make sure that you integrate how you work and set those boundaries earlier on. I'm going to be talking about those 4 concepts through these topics today. There's a lot to cover, but I'm going to be talking about business positioning, looking at your ideal client avatar, defining out what your offerings and what your services are. And like I said before, really diving into how to manage expectations. And then once we finish talking about that, we're going to step into expansion of your business, really understanding how to hire right, how to lead correctly. I'm going to share with you some hiring hacks that I learned from working at Apple. And also, most importantly, how you can truly scale through systems. Through today, and before we get into it, I just want to share this is really what I want to enable. And that's to help people really work smart and create more. What I mean by that is working smartly, like being more productive, being more efficient in the way that you manage and handle your time so that you can create more of that time, more of that freedom, more of that money. By being productive in what you currently do and how you do it, it's going to really create the more, if not more, or the same amount of output in less time. So I'm going to mention a couple of tools that are maybe useful for you. And if you don't already have them, go to my website, june.com/33 hacks. You should already have a copy, but you will have access to the tools that I reference in there. All right. So let's kick off. I'm going to start with talking about business positioning. Everyone needs to begin here, okay? Because this is really just simply about getting super clear on what it is that you currently do and who you help. It's so key to understanding where you're coming from. And a very good exercise or a hack that I use to enable you to have this positioning and make it easier for you is through what you put in your bio. Okay, so I know most of us maybe look at that. I've got an example on the screen here that shows you just really quickly what you should be included in your bio. And this quick checklist is really the top 3. The first thing is to make sure that you are addressing who it is that you help and what is it that you help with. As an example in mine, first line, I help creative CEOs. And what do I help with? I help with growth strategy and systems. Very clear, right? The second thing you need to make sure it has is it's simple to understand. Don't use, so for example, in my business, I always reference maybe some of the things that I do with my clients as online business optimization. Now, that is a term I've coined internally and my team understand me, but other people won't. So I don't say OBO anywhere on my bio because that's jargon. That's something that people won't understand. So making sure that it's simple to understand is key. And of course, making sure that it is searchable. Using keywords as simply as marketing, business, productivity, so that you have that and you can be found through, like, think of the way that your audience is going to be typing into Instagram or typing into a platform to find you. Okay, so that's key in business positioning, right? And it's really all about that clarity, getting clear on what it is your USP is. Who knows what a USP is? It stands for unique selling proposition. And what that is the key in how you define yourself. What is it that makes you stand out above the rest? What is going to make me really want to work with you rather than working with anybody else? Getting absolutely clear on this is key because that's going to make you stand out. The second thing for business positioning that we all currently do is personal branding. Now, personal branding is so simply your brand, right? Your business. It's an example and a representation of how you show up online that reflects entirely on how you are in your business. Now, let me give you an example, or let's do this exercise real quick. If I say Tesla, who do you think of? You probably think Elon. If I say Apple, who do you think of? I definitely think of Steve Jobs or maybe Tim Cook. See, we position or we remember faces, we remember people because we connect with people more, right? So when we're connecting with people, that is a representation of your business immediately. Sometimes I don't remember the name of the business. I remember the name of the person that I was speaking to. So just remember that your personal branding is actually your business already. So it's really key to not overthink it because your personal branding is a representation of how you are and what you do in your business already. And you just show up with that. The third thing about business positioning that I want to dive into, and I think it's something that kind of creates a big block for a lot of business owners, is the idea of niching down. Now, niching is not an absolute must. Niching is a great strategy to hone into one messaging or understanding one way or focusing on delivering one service, but it's not a requirement. Let me give you an example because I came from paid advertising background. I was working in performance media, so doing PPC, Google ads, paid ads, all that. And when I first started my business, I thought, oh, okay, because I really know how to do ad campaigns, this is what I have to do. But it's not really about niching down into one specific service, because even in that, when I was doing Facebook ads or Instagram ads, because your funnel is so connected with other areas, it's good to not just box yourself in, because it might be that you might need to support somebody on better landing page optimization, or Maybe they just need a better email marketing funnel, for example. So the thing is, you don't need to get your niche so correct that it stops you from doing the work. You can be flexible in what you do. But what you really need to understand is who you're speaking to. So having almost a niche of an audience is going to help you really clearly define who it is that you're speaking to and attract the right kind of clients. So that comes to what is called the ideal client avatar, the ICA. Now, the ICA is who is your ideal client currently? Maybe you already have somebody in mind that you absolutely love working with. You need to think about a few of these key factors. And especially when it comes to trying to attract this person, understanding this allows you to do the right messaging. So, of course, you've got demographics, you've got age, gender, location, that the kind of just persona that fits your ideal client. And a good exercise is to give this persona a name, right? Most importantly, really try and understand their interest and their behaviors. Their interest and their behaviors is really that way that you're able to genuinely connect with your ideal client. And that's how you talk to them. That's how you create that relevancy. And that's how you start to create those really strong relationships. Because once you understand what they're interested in, and especially if you have shared interests, going back to the alignment, you're going to understand what to say because you understand their pains, right? Understanding where they are right now versus where they want to be. That gap and that opportunity is where you want to be put into the picture, and that's your opportunity to be considered. Understanding that will allow you to curate, for example, all of your content pillars, all of the clarity on what you need to be saying in your messaging. Understanding pains is absolutely key when it comes to your ideal client avatar. Now, one thing that I think is really important when you are attracting new clients as well is actually having a way to filter them or to validate that they are the right kind of client for you. Now, I know some of you might say that you might not be ready for that point yet, but even just having this system in place to have kind of a gateway to understand the next person who's coming on board as a new client, it's actually really supportive and helpful to you. So let me explain that. If you have a application form, for example, in this example here, I've actually got one for the funnel optimization offer. And that's where you've got to apply, right? Or a mastermind. You have to register and apply first so that you can then start to speak to somebody on my team and they book in for a call. And we have a chat and we understand, okay, is this person right to work with? Is it going to be a really good fit? You make sure that they're aligned on the front foot, because even through that process, let's say you're not ready to deny any clients or you just want to bring on as many clients as possible. If you have a structured approach like this, what it's going to allow you to do is have a taste of what that working relationship is going to feel like. That's why I like to actually call this the ideal aligned client, the IAC. The reason why I say this is not because you don't just need to understand who it is that you're attracting, right? It's very simple. You have a persona, but also just making sure that the experience itself and your relationships, working with that client, is just as great. So when you're going through this validation process, it's thinking about, okay, how does this already feel? Is the communication easy to work with? Is it progressive? Is the communication collaborative? Are they also really willing to give you all of this information? No, think about that. And most importantly, we have to listen to our gut. We've got to listen to the red flags. If the client isn't really helping you and isn't giving you access to the things that you've requested a week ago, that is a red flag. You already know that you've got to pay attention to them. And this is a very important point that I know is so difficult for some people. And especially when you're starting out, even for me, it was very hard to say no. And learning to say no is really valuable and absolutely necessary. I personally had to say no to a really big contract recently because what I knew was that one, it wasn't going to be aligned. Two, it was going to take up a lot of my energy and my focus to the point where I wouldn't have any other time to focus on my business. How many of us are just constantly working on our client projects, or we're working on all the things that we need to do in our to-do list, and we don't actually find the time to work on growing the business itself? I've done that for so long. And the key is just to remember to even allocate yourself some time to create space for growth. Like, the more space you have that you can focus on your business and not constantly taking up any contract that comes, you're going to be able to attract even more of that aligned client, and you're going to be able to attract higher paying contracts, work that feels amazing. And the reason why I say this has been super key. Like, instead of just saying yes to every or like any contract that comes through or any job that comes through, really divert your focus, or like what you're like putting your attention to, into improving your existing client's experience. Now, this is absolute so important, because if you think about it, instead of constantly trying to do more and more business development, instead what you're just doing is really making that existing customer experience so amazing that they're going to be your raving fans, they're going to refer you, and they're going to stay. They're going to stay and continue working with you on and on different projects. And that way you've improved your client retention already. Now, the more client retention you have, it means that they work with you for longer, and then you don't have to, there's less churn, less movement. And let's think about when you onboard a new client, right? There is always this setup phase that requires some understanding of each other's businesses. And that setup phase is also going to cost time. So the more that you're able to retain your clients and keep them on for longer, the better, the faster you can grow, right? And how I've really been able to retain my clients is truly through making sure that I have managed expectations. Now, I mentioned this before, but really, if you are able to manage expectations, not just within like client to you relationship, but also within your team, even within your, like for yourself, you're going to be able to manage the outcome so much clearer, and you're going to be able to control the outcome of that much better too. So let me give you some tips on how to manage expectations really well. And I think this is an absolute game changer, and I practice this all the time. The first thing is as simply as like making sure that you're thinking ahead, going into prevention first method, and being on the front foot of the communications. As an example, if you know that you're traveling somewhere and you might not have service on Monday, for example, communicate that. Be the first one to say, hey, I might not be available on Monday, but I already have put these systems in place. You're able to reach out to my account manager if you need, or this is already where it's at. And by doing that, you're already creating a sense of trust. You're basically strengthening that relationship. And it's really important, paired with this second piece that basically we always did at Apple. They still do it at Apple. And that is under promising and over delivering. Now, this is my favorite thing, because it's really about setting those expectations at a level that you can control. For example, when you're under promising, or you're promising a certain level of work or scope or thing, if you have promised it here, right? And if you under promise it just underneath, what happens when it comes to the execution or the implementation of the work? You're guaranteeing your over delivery. So you're wowing them, you're going above and beyond. And by doing that, they're going to be like surprised and delighted. Your clients are going to be very happy with you. Whereas if you overpromise, right? If you promise too much, and maybe, and in most cases, this can happen, where you have maybe underestimated some time that it might take, or you didn't realize that was going to be involved, then what's happened is they are expecting a certain degree of scope and you fall short of that. That's guaranteed that they're going to be disappointed. So under promising and over delivering is something so key that you should implement all the time. And that's just making sure that you set the boundaries early. When you have control over these expectations, it's going to improve your communication. It's going to improve your working relationship. And all of that really comes down to this third piece where it's about the agreement and the contract level. Having really clear agreements and contracts are going to put you in a better position to even get paid better in the future. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a bit, but how you get really clear on your agreements and your contracts is to really get super, super clear on your offerings and your services. I have an exercise that I want everyone to do, but this is just really monumental in making a difference and a change and a shift in your business that you will need. So your services, you need to be able to define exactly what it is that you do and what it is that you do for your clients, clearly list it out and add details to what is included. I really want us to be specific and really break it down, because in these contracts, I know most of us are super vague and not clear enough. Now, I have an example here, and I say break it down. I really mean break it down. Basically, all you need to do is start up a Google Sheet, and on the left-hand side, write down the service name as a whole, like grouped, and then break down the service itself and add descriptions. What I also like to do is add a category to the right-hand side so that you know what type of work is required, whether that's marketing, strategy, tech, ops. And this really contributes to later on with building your systems. I'll get into that later. I've got another example, which is something that everyone here deals with in their business, right? Social media. This example, let me just break it down a little bit further, because this is a really good example of where you can get really vague in your contract. You can say, I just do social media for you. But if you are not specific enough, then you're going to fall into a trap where you might be doing extra work that isn't compensated for. And the way you avoid that is through this service breakdown that I have. I can send a template if you're interested in that, DM me. But break down the social media marketing. It is not just like marketing as a whole. You need to understand, is it ongoing? Is it curation of graphics? Does it include writing, copy? Does it include graphics and video editing? Or does it include, for example, social media engagement? Do you have to be responding to DMs, comments, that kind of thing? Break it down. We all know that social media itself can be a job, like a full-time job. You to manage expectations, what we were talking about before. You can see clearly what you need to do within that project. And it definitely supports you in systems, because when you break it down and you can see, I had on the left-hand side, the category, for example, if you need more people in graphics or you need some more people in writing, you'll be able to see that clearly on who it is that you need to hire next. And because you have all these steps, it allows you support in your systems, because you can plug and play that into your system. And essentially, if you have somebody who's away or they're sick for that week, they can go into this and see, okay, what exactly needs to be done? When you're able to really estimate or understand this workload visually and see it clearly, you're going to be very, more enabled to estimate your timing better. Your ETAs are going to be more accurate. You're going to know how much time a project's going to take you. And then that way you know how to get paid better, because you know how much time it's going to take, right? And how much work it's going to take. So let's go into getting paid better. Now, this is so important, and I want everyone to be able to explain this concept by the end of this call. So some of us business owners might be getting paid hourly. Now, there's nothing wrong with getting paid hourly, but I want to explain the concepts between and the difference between the two, because time is not experience. And I want everyone to really think about their value and tap into this idea. I, for example, have had 10 years of marketing experience. I've been working in ads, I've been working in startups, e-com, the lot, and my 1 hour is not going to be the equivalent of somebody who, for example, is currently in university and has no life experience with that. Time is not really a great measure of your expertise and what you have brought to the table, because what you've learned in those 10 years, 1 year, whatever, few months is different to what somebody else is doing and how they do it. So I want everyone to understand this concept, and this concept I like to call time cost. Okay, let me give you an example. So if person A charges $50 per hour and person B charges $300 per hour, in terms of, as a business owner, immediately in terms of resources, we think cost, right? We immediately think cost. Yes, that makes sense because it's psychology. Whatever's cheaper, we might consider that first because it's a better price, right? But really explain this. If person A takes 10 hours to do the same job and person B only takes 1 hour, who would you actually hire? Person A or person B? B, right? Because B is going to ultimately cost only $300, whereas person A is going to cost $500 and also take 10 times as long to do it. So you're also saving time already with the person who's more qualified for it, and you're saving money in the long run. The key is to explain this concept to the client that you might be onboarding, because they need to understand that. And anybody who really values their own time will definitely understand this concept. Time costs. This is something I want you to bring to the table all the time. And even vice versa, time costs for yourself. I'll get into that later. Now, back to the agreements. This is where making sure that this agreement level is, one, super clear. Make sure it's clear. Include, show what is included in your scope. Position it super early on, and have a clause that says, okay, if you are requiring extra work that is additional and outside of what we agreed on, this is going to be the charge per hour on top. Be super clear with that, because as soon as that's already in the agreement, it's no surprise when you have to have that maybe a difficult conversation saying, hey, sorry, but this wasn't included in this, but we'll need to talk about how much that might cost you. So having those boundaries early on really support you in making that communication so smooth and having that really great working relationship, because nobody likes those conversations. The fourth piece of advice I have about agreements that I really think is important for everyone to implement in any business is to make sure that you have an invoice of a deposit before the work starts. So when you have agreed to a contract, make sure that you have sent them an invoice and you've received payment before you begin the work. That's really important, guys. Okay, let's do a really quick recap of what I've covered so far. Now, I've talked about how to position yourself in your business, making sure your personal branding is aligned. Second, we've talked about defining your ideal aligned client. So not just looking at the persona of who you need and the demographics or interests, but more so looking at how you work with that person. And then third, we've talked about managing expectations through very clear agreements. Next, we've also talked about being very specific on your offerings and services so that you can really get those better paying agreements with those better paying clients as well. And of course, being able to structure your costs better. I know that's quite a bit, and that's why I will quickly share with you that I have created this offer called the funnel optimization. And this is really fun for us because it's the first time we've ever done it, where usually the type of agency owner that handholds my clients quite a bit, and I generally walk them through and work on retainer basis. But this funnel optimization offer is where we come into your business and we essentially fix your current funnel, and we look at all the gaps or where we can really start to convert more into sales or more clients. If you are interested in that, go to junei.com/justfunnel. It's really exciting. We onboarded our first client that we're starting on this week. So yeah, check it out, guys. It's a really cool offer. And basically, the next step is for us to really step into expansion of your online business. And I know that this can be really hard, especially when you've had a taste of this like remote work style life and you have this need to travel and be present in what you're at the time, but also you know that you want this like growth of your business or growth in your career. I want you to know that it's absolutely possible to have both the freedom and the growth. And it's something that I've been working so hard on. But I know and I see the potential in so many people who create amazing content, know their stuff. You just need to be able to step into a sustainable business. Now, 2 pieces to expansion. The first is hiring, and the second is how you lead your team. So let me share some of that, because ultimately who you hire is very important, and definitely hire really well, but it's really comes down to how you manage them and how you lead them. Being able to enable somebody is really the key in having a very sustainable business. Let me share a couple of hacks that I have for you. I applied this in, finding my global team currently, and also how I hired in people at Apple. So the first thing is to focus on attitude over experience. Now, there will be a time where your experience needs to be the priority, but especially when you're starting out, looking at their attitude is going to be more important for you at the beginning. Because you can hire somebody who has 2-3 years of experience, but maybe they just aren't keen or don't have the enthusiasm to do the work. So focusing on the attitude first always helps. The second thing is to make sure that they have aligned interests, right? If you have aligned interests and those shared values that I was talking about in alignment earlier, you're going to immediately improve their motivation or their productivity. It's going to be a given. The third with hiring is making sure that you set up a probation period. This is really simply put, like when we start, there's going to be a testing phase of whether or not we're a good fit for each other. So whenever you hire somebody on, they have that expectation that if I don't reach my KPIs within month 2, then we're going to have a conversation. The fourth piece that I want to share, and I think this is the most important part, it comes down to your interview process and making sure that you actually interview practically. What I mean by practically is when you are interviewing somebody, do it in a way that reflects your working style. As an example, so whenever I hire anybody, I don't just immediately look at their cover letter and then book in for a Zoom call. That won't work for me. What I want to know is how they're going to be communicating with me, because I'm a remote global team, right? I need to make sure that they're able to understand how to chat with me, essentially. So the format that I go into is simply some form of messenger chat. We talk in Messenger. I even tell them to find me on that platform. I get them to go through Facebook. If they can't find me, that shows that they don't know how to use that platform very well. I observe things through the communication. Some things as simple as, is the conversation flowing? Do they understand my typos? Is it really hard to get an answer back? And when you see those things, then you're able to understand how it's going to feel when you're working together. So really, I think the hiring part is actually the easiest. Finding really talented people can be super fun as well, and I love it. But what's the most important part comes next, and that's in managing and being a leader to your team. And it's really important, because if you are a great manager and you're able to really enable people to do their best work, they're going to be more productive. And then ultimately everyone's happy. Some tips I have around that is to truly try not to micromanage. I want to understand who's been in a situation where they've had a client or they're working for a manager that just constantly is keeping tabs on you, or they're checking in and asking you where everything is, and it just doesn't feel like they trust you at all. When we did the live workshop, so many have experienced that, and it's not a good feeling. It's not a good feeling to not feel like you're being trusted. So to combat that, make sure that you have like tools in place or just a setup in place that support teamwork. Now, what I mean by that is, I don't know if you use maybe messenger platforms like Slack. With Slack as an example, I personally, might bother some people, but I personally don't like Slack. I don't like Slack because there's so many channels on the left, and people can just type a response to something and that's their way of working on it. And there's no thread, there's no association to the task that they're meant to do for that period of time. So what I prefer is a project management tool that really allows you to see the entire project and also see what's being worked on, and anything that becomes a blocker is easily attached to that task, and you can tag the people, and it's all centralized in one place. I've used every single project management tool there is: Monday, Asana, like Airtable, Notion, you name it. I have tried it, and this one is just number one when it comes to specifically managing teams globally. One actual key feature that this has that most of the other tools don't is time tracking within the platform. No plugins needed. So I'm going to show you real quick. This is a screenshot of how mine looks at the moment. And at any given day, I can see today what people are working on, what's in progress right now. I can see that Sophie's working on the copy landing page that's due today, and here's the link. She's left me a comment, so I know that she needs something from me for that specific task. I know what's happening tomorrow. I can break it down into client versus type of task as well. So having something like this will really enable you to grow your business. And that's why systems is genuinely the key, absolute key to scaling faster. And I know it's not sexy. I know it can be like, oh, why do I need that? And especially when you have, or you're building out your team and people don't use a system, you need everybody on board for this to work, right? But let me tell you that even in 2017, when I had a graphic designer or I had somebody helping in copy, even though I had those people, I wasn't really able to scale my business in a way that felt sustainable, that I felt like the work was being done until I had systems, right? Because ultimately what it's going to help you with is, first off, it's definitely going to save you time. It's going to save you time because everything's centralized, for one. You're going to be able to delegate the task out to anybody. And the reason why I say anyone is because as long as you have a system in place, if somebody is sick and they go away, they can come in and understand exactly what needs to be done. That's how you need to set up your business. The third piece to how systems really support you is it helps you create this consistency. For example, with social media, again, you know that you've got to post a couple times per week. That keeps up the consistency. If you have that in there, it's an automatic reminder that it needs to be done once again. The fourth piece to systems is really that it improves productivity. Like when I was talking about enabling your team better, you don't want to just have like blockers in place, especially when you're dealing with a remote global team and you're working with different time zones, say. You don't want the time zone to become your absolute blocker because they're waiting on like a doc, for example, that you've just pasted in the wrong place. So with the system, it's going to improve your productivity and then enable you to really onboard more of those clients. Let's wrap up with a couple of key takeaways, and after this we'll dive into 10 minutes of a Q&A. But what I really hope you take away from today is, first off, making sure that you are working with aligned clients, making sure they have the same shared values. Saying no to a bad client is going to save you so much time, so much money, and it's just going to be better for you in the long run to make sure that you're both on the same page. And it's going to be much easier to attract that aligned client too. Second thing is to optimize your current and existing services. Look within the business. Don't keep looking at how you can onboard new and more clients, because if you're doing that, you're spending a lot more time on business development rather than like client retention. By optimizing your services, you're going to be able to get paid so much better. Third piece, most important piece, is managing expectation. I can't say that enough. But doing that with clear communication, and also using that system to allow clear communication too within your team. That is going to really help you scale up. And the final piece is genuinely getting ready to step into expansion, building out your team and enabling them. You need to be ready to delegate anything that you do once, again and again. Outsource that task and have somebody else do that. And I know that sometimes it can be difficult. I get it. Like, especially as perfectionists, or we're new entrepreneurs, new online business owners, and we want to get things done really right, but you need to value your time. So I hope everyone understands what they need to take action in. It is time for some Q&A. I'm going to leave some action points with you as well. That's going to be your homework that I'll send through next week. So let's dive into some Q&A. Does anybody have any questions? Mark, you've asked such a great question. Can you give an example of under-promising? Okay, let me answer that one first. But the concept of under-promising and over-delivering. An example would be just saying to your client, let's say you have an agreed scope. So this is an example that actually happened quite recently. I had a client who wanted to launch a workshop, like a last minute workshop, like today's one, and there was nothing set up. There's no funnel, there's no email marketing automations set up at all. And she wanted to do it on a Sunday. She called us on a Thursday night, by the way. And to manage the expectation, instead of diving right into it, which we already have systems, we already know how to do this, we can do this, we know. But instead of saying, yes, let's get that all done, it's positioning beforehand. Usually for this type of setup, it might, like, I would prefer to have at least tell us one day, give us the brief, give us the scope. Maybe it's a graphic design job. You need the scope first, and then you need to give me 48 hours to 72 hours or a week to implement that. And as soon as you set a time expectation, as soon as you say, okay, it might take us up to a week to have this ready for you. Is it okay if I send this to you on Monday morning or like early next week? By setting that expectation, they know, okay, that's what I have to expect. They're gonna get back to me next week, not tomorrow. And you're also setting up the scope and setting up the time constraints better, right? But then as soon as you email them actually on Thursday evening, end of day, and you're like, it's all done, it's ready to go, they're going to be so happy. They're going to be happy that you've given them an extra 2 days and that you've done it. It feels like you've gone above and beyond and done it quicker. So that's an example. Your time expectations and setting those up and those boundaries is the easiest way that you can just make sure you're under promising, so that you're guaranteeing this over delivery. And that over delivery, who loves it when it's, oh yeah, was meant to only give you, I don't know, 5 assets or 5 videos, and suddenly I've given you 10 pieces of video for you to use. Everyone loves it. So that's how you do it. All right, any other questions? Yeah, the project management tool I did use that I've talked about time and time again, and it's everywhere, is ClickUp. Now, I can go on and on about this, but ClickUp is the best project management tool that I've used, time tracking wise, managing my team wise. It's got everything that you need in it, even docs, whiteboards, so you don't need additional tools. It's a one-stop shop, which is great. Do we have any other questions? Okay, cool. I've got one here. When creating a system and assigning roles and responsibilities, what app do I use to make sure everyone's responsible? The answer to that is simply ClickUp. I showed a screenshot actually of my system and how it looks, and you'll be able to see that in the slides that I send through later on. But one thing about understanding who to hire actually comes back to that service breakdown that I was talking about By creating a service breakdown, it's super key because then you can see, I'll show you in the slides again, but what I like to do is add a final column to the right-hand side and estimate the time that it actually takes. Say, graphic design is estimated to take 10 hours, but in actual fact, it's taking us 20 hours. So when I see the discrepancy, or I see that, hey, I actually need a lot more graphic work, or hey, I need a lot more like writing work, I'm able to see very clearly who it is or what kind of tasks I need support in. If I can see that I'm spending 20 hours a week on writing something, first off, everyone should be using ChatGPT 4 as an assistant already. If you haven't, that's like the easiest entry point to expanding your team. Even through AI, use tools if need be. But understanding, okay, 10 extra of my hours is going to this task, while I know that I can delegate this task out, or I can use ChatGPT. By seeing visually, okay, I'm spending too much time on this, that's the thing that you hire for. That's the thing that you start to delegate out first. All right, awesome. I think we have 5 more minutes. Do we have anyone else, any other questions? I got a question about how do I know if my business is suited for the funnel optimization? Yes, that's a great question and I love it. I designed this specifically for anybody who is struggling to convert, like struggling to find, like getting paid more, finding more clients. Usually what I find is whenever I'm working with any creative CEO or any entrepreneur is that you've got a lot of hats that you wear for your business. You're looking at your marketing, you're looking at your product, you're looking at your finances, accounting, and because your focus and your attention is so dispersed, you're not able to really truly see what your funnel is meant to look like and how you're meant to move people through that experience and get them to become a client or a customer. So if you are really in a position where you feel like you're not moving the needle enough, or you feel like maybe your systems aren't in place to enable you to scale, that's what funnel optimization is for. And that's why I've created it. All right, amazing. Guys, it was such a pleasure to have you on here. I am very excited, and thank you if you're joining from the replay as well. Please DM me if you have any other comments, or if you have any feedback. I would love to hear from you. I will be sending the replay out to you in the next edition of the Helpful Hacks newsletter, which is on Tuesday. Thank you guys so much for being here. I really appreciated you guys joining. I really hope that was helpful. Please message me and let me know which part was most helpful to you. Thank you guys for joining. Bye guys.